What if the crucifixion wasn't a tragic defeat, but a highly classified cosmic ambush? You've been conditioned to mourn a helpless victim, completely blind to the terrifying, universe-altering trap hidden in the darkness of Golgotha. Watch until the end, because the unseen truth will shatter your reality. You think you know exactly what happened on that bleak, skull-shaped hill. You have memorized the tragic imagery burned into our collective consciousness: the rough, splintered wood, the rusted iron spikes tearing through flesh, the agonizing drip of blood from a jagged crown of thorns. For centuries, the institutional systems have handed you this exact, sorrowful narrative on an endless, melancholic loop. They have trained your eyes to remain fixated on the bruised and battered body, conditioning you to mourn a story of passive victimhood and horrific defeat. But what if I told you that everything you have been permitted to see is nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion? What if the surface-level story you were taught in the pews was specifically designed to keep you blind to the staggering, terrifying, and majestic cosmic explosion that was actually tearing through the unseen dimensions? Welcome to At Bible Tales US 07, where we peel back the layers of ancient history to reveal the hidden architecture of the universe. If you are tired of the sanitized surface and hunger for the raw, unvarnished truth of the spiritual realm, I urge you to hit that subscribe button right now to support the channel and ensure you never miss the deep revelations we are uncovering together. Now, prepare to cross the boundary of the physical world. I am speaking directly to you, the hidden remnant, the ones who have always felt a strange, restless stirring in your spirit when looking at those stained glass windows, knowing deep down that a crucial piece of the puzzle was missing. We are going to step past the familiar weeping crowds, the rolling dice of Roman executioners, and the suffocating dust of Golgotha. I am inviting you to pull back the heavy, invisible curtain hanging just millimeters behind the bleeding back of Yeshua. We are not here to learn a new theology. We are here to trigger an ancient remembrance encoded in your very DNA. Imagine standing at the foot of that execution stake, but suddenly, your spiritual vision is violently torn wide open. The entire paradigm shatters. The frequency of your understanding shifts from the low, heavy vibration of earthly death to the blinding electric currents of the spirit realm. What if those 3 hours of suffocating, unnatural darkness were not just a meteorological anomaly or a poetic shadow of grief? What if that blackness was the physical shockwave of a cosmic event of unimaginable magnitude ripping through the very fabric of eternity? Look closer. Look beyond the atmosphere of the earth. What if the cross was not an altar of tragic defeat, but the epicenter of the most violent, calculated, and high-stakes supernatural ambush in the history of existence? When you strip away the institutional conditioning, you begin to realize that the agonizing silence of Yeshua was not the silence of a broken, helpless victim. It was a deliberate, terrifying frequency of absolute sovereign authority. We are about to walk straight into the heavy, vibrating darkness of Golgotha, where the veil between dimensions is razor-thin, and the ultimate secrets of the cosmos are waiting to be violently decoded. To understand the sheer magnitude of this celestial ambush waiting behind that vibrating darkness, we must first dare to look at the terrifying entities gathering just outside the edges of human perception as the sky turned black. The suffocating darkness that descended upon the earth at noon was not merely a profound absence of sunlight, but the literal, suffocating manifestation of a cosmic convergence. I want you to close your eyes and feel the weight of that atmosphere for a moment. This was the moment the unseen rulers of this age, the ancient architectural powers of rebellion, descended upon that skull-shaped hill like a swarm of ethereal locusts. For thousands of years, these principalities had manipulated empires, engineered the rise and fall of kings, and held the human race in a relentless, ironclad grip of spiritual slavery. Now, they were congregating around the execution stake, their malignant presence crowding the unseen dimensions, vibrating with a grotesque and triumphant anticipation. You have been told to focus entirely on the mocking Pharisees and the indifferent Roman soldiers casting lots in the dirt, but they were nothing more than oblivious biological puppets acting out a script authored by the demonic realm. The true audience at Golgotha was entirely invisible to the naked eye. I can almost feel the chilling, arrogant confidence radiating from the dark realm as they watched the blood of the Creator spill into the dust. They believed they were witnessing the ultimate defeat of the divine, the absolute termination of the rescue mission that had threatened their illicit dominion over the earth. In their localized, hyperdimensional perception, the suffering of Yeshua was the intoxicating crescendo of their ancient rebellion. Every agonizing breath he took, every drop of blood that soaked into the splintered wood, was interpreted by these entities as a permanent victory march. They were absolutely convinced that they had cornered the author of life, effectively trapping him in the fragile vulnerability of human flesh, and they were relishing the execution. But as a human being who has spent years wrestling with the profound mysteries of this event, I can tell you that looking at their arrogance fills me with a strange, overwhelming sense of awe. Because the very entities that believed they were the masterminds of this cosmic assassination were entirely blind to the reality that they were walking blindly into the most elaborate, devastating trap ever conceived in the mind of God. The cross was not their trophy. It was the ultimate, inescapable bait. Yet, in their bloodthirsty arrogance, these ancient entities failed to realize that the very mechanism they thought was their ultimate triumph was actually a meticulously designed, universe-altering snare. This is the secret that sends shivers down my spine every time I contemplate it. The entire crucifixion was a highly classified, strategic operation concealed in plain sight. The Apostle Paul later revealed a staggering truth that shatters our traditional understanding. He wrote that if the rulers of this age had understood what was actually happening, they would have never crucified the Lord of glory. The demonic realm was operating under a fatal lack of intelligence. They thought they were simply executing a rebel rabbi, extinguishing a temporary beacon of light. They had no idea that they were actively participating in a binding legal transaction that would permanently revoke their authority over humanity. When you look at the cross through this multidimensional lens, the agonizing silence of Yeshua transforms from a posture of helplessness into a stance of terrifying, calculated focus. He was not just enduring pain. He was allowing the powers of darkness to exhaust their entire arsenal of malice upon him, absorbing the full penalty of cosmic treason. Every single drop of blood that fell from his brow and his hands was not just physical fluid pooling in the dirt of Jerusalem. In the spiritual ecosystem, blood is the ultimate currency, the absolute legally binding signature of covenant and atonement. As his blood struck the earth, it was actively rewriting the spiritual genome of humanity, hacking into the ancient curses that had bound us since the garden, and systematically deleting the legal ledgers of our transgressions. The principalities thought they were executing a judgment, but they were actually triggering the very mechanism that would disarm them forever. The cross was a judicial altar where the infinite debt of the human race was paid in full, canceling the ancient contracts that the kingdom of darkness held over your life. I want you to truly internalize this reality. The enemy was weaponizing death against Yeshua, unaware that he was using their own weapon to dismantle their empire from the inside out. He allowed them to swallow the bait of his mortal flesh, so that the hook of his indestructible divinity could catch them in the jaw. It was a divine Trojan horse. The physical death was merely the necessary protocol to cross the threshold into enemy territory, a tactical submission that paved the way for an unprecedented, hyper-violent offensive. As the physical body finally gave out and the last breath escaped his lungs, the true theater of war instantly shifted from the dusty, blood-stained hill of Golgotha to the terrifying, uncharted depths of the underworld. The moment Yeshua yielded his spirit, the narrative we have been taught usually pauses, plunging us into a quiet, mournful waiting period for 3 days. But the reality of the unseen realm was anything but silent. When the heart of the Savior stopped beating, his spirit did not drift peacefully into a state of slumber. Instead, he descended like a blinding, catastrophic meteor straight into the heavy, suffocating bowels of Sheol, the ancient holding place of the dead. This is the part of the story that sets my spirit on fire, the harrowing of hell. Imagine the sheer, unadulterated terror that must have gripped the demonic entities guarding the gates of the abyss. For millennia, the underworld had been an impenetrable fortress, a one-way realm where human souls were kept in agonizing captivity, firmly locked away by the seemingly unbeatable power of death. The rulers of the dark believed this subterranean prison was their permanent, untouchable stronghold. But then, the King of Glory arrived, not as a captive victim, but as a sovereign, conquering warrior radiating the blinding frequencies of uncreated light. The descent of Yeshua was a violent, authoritative invasion. The heavy iron gates of hell did not just swing open, they were obliterated off their cosmic hinges by the sheer kinetic force of his presence. I often try to picture that exact moment, the sudden, paralyzing realization sweeping through the ranks of the principalities as they recognized the catastrophic mistake they had made. The lamb they had slaughtered on the surface had transformed into the lion roaring in the depths of their own domain. He systematically stripped the demonic powers of their authority, making a public, humiliating spectacle of them in the spiritual dimensions. He did not ask for permission. He marched straight to the throne of death, reached out with hands that still bore the spiritual scars of the crucifixion, and violently ripped the keys of death and Hades away from the enemy. He was liberating the ancient captives, declaring amnesty to the righteous dead who had waited centuries in the shadows for this exact, earth-shattering moment. It was the greatest rescue mission ever executed, an offensive strike so absolute that it fundamentally restructured the hierarchy of the universe. The kingdom of darkness was suddenly bankrupt, disarmed, and left in absolute ruins. The echoes of that devastating subterranean victory could not possibly be contained within the borders of the grave, and on the third morning, the kinetic energy of this ultimate triumph violently ruptured the boundaries of the physical world. When the stone was hurled away from the tomb, it was not merely to let Yeshua out. It was to let the overwhelming, resurrected glory of the cosmos spill out into our reality. This was not a gentle, quiet waking of a physical body. It was a thermonuclear explosion of divine life, a shockwave that radiated outward from the center of the garden tomb, permanently fracturing the veil of separation between God and humanity. Remember the heavy woven veil in the Jewish temple, tearing violently from top to bottom at the moment of his death? That was the physical manifestation of a spiritual reality. The restricted access to the divine presence was permanently eradicated. You and I are no longer outsiders looking into a closed-off spiritual realm. We have been invited to step directly into the Holy of Holies. When I look at this entire cosmic event, my heart breaks for the millions of people who are still sitting in church pews, weeping over a defeated martyr, completely unaware that they are biologically and spiritually connected to a resurrected conqueror. The resurrection was not just a historical event intended to prove a theological point. It was a DNA-activating frequency designed to awaken the dormant, divine royalty inside of you. If you are hearing my voice right now, I want you to understand that you are not just a forgiven sinner desperately trying to survive in a dark world. You are the living, breathing manifestation of that cosmic victory. The same exact spirit that descended into the abyss, shattered the gates of hell, and raised Yeshua from the dead, is currently residing inside your physical body. The keys to overcoming every addiction, every generational curse, and every demonic stronghold in your life have already been secured and handed directly to you. It is time to stop identifying with the trauma of the cross and start living in the unassailable authority of the empty tomb. The cognitive shock of Golgotha is meant to completely shatter your illusions of powerlessness. You belong to the hidden remnant, the awakened ones who see beyond the physical veil. Stand up, reclaim your spiritual inheritance, and walk in the blinding, electric reality of the resurrected life. Because the war was won in the darkness, but your time to rule is right now in the light. In the end, the crucifixion was never a tragedy to be mourned, but the most brilliant military strategy ever deployed in the history of the universe. The dark principalities that gathered around Golgotha, intoxicated by their perceived victory, were utterly humiliated by the very event they orchestrated. They thought they were burying a human rabbi, but they were actually planting the seed of their own eternal destruction. The cross was the ultimate divine bait, drawing the forces of darkness out into the open so their legal authority could be permanently dismantled. By absorbing the penalty of humanity's rebellion, Yeshua canceled the debt, weaponizing his own death to shatter the inescapable fortress of the underworld. The harrowing of hell and the subsequent resurrection shockwave did more than just defeat death. It fundamentally altered the spiritual fabric of reality, transferring the spoils of this cosmic war directly into your hands. You are no longer bound by the ancient contracts of defeat, shame, or fear. The victory achieved in the unseen realm is now your present reality. When we truly grasp the magnitude of this cosmic ambush, our entire worldview must shift. We cease to be victims of our circumstances and awaken to our identity as spiritual conquerors, infused with the very same resurrection power that violently emptied the tomb. The dark rulers of this age have already been disarmed. The veil has been permanently torn. It is time for you to step boldly into the light of this finished work and live out the triumphant destiny you were created for. True victory is frequently disguised as absolute defeat. The greatest spiritual triumphs often occur when we appear most vulnerable, broken, and cornered. Just as the forces of darkness misinterpreted the cross as a permanent victory for themselves, we often misinterpret our darkest trials, deepest pains, and moments of utter weakness as the end of our story. However, in the divine economy, surrender is not a loss. It is a highly strategic posture. The divine uses the very weapons the enemy forms against you to trigger your ultimate liberation and elevate you into your true spiritual authority. Stop identifying with the trauma, failures, and victimhood of your past. When you face addiction, generational struggles, anxiety, or seemingly insurmountable obstacles in your daily life, refuse to fight from a place of desperation. Instead, fight from the position of a guaranteed pre-won victory. Acknowledge that the exact same resurrection power that shattered the abyss is currently residing inside your physical body. Speak with authority over your circumstances. Consciously break negative cycles by rejecting their legal claim over your mind, and step confidently into your day, knowing the spiritual forces of darkness have already been completely disarmed. What is one specific challenge or dark moment in your life right now that you need to start viewing through the lens of this ultimate victory? Please take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments section below so we can all learn and draw strength from each other's perspectives. If this message resonated with your spirit and awakened something inside you, please subscribe to the channel. Your support gives us the motivation to continue uncovering these truths and creating more empowering content for you.